Hello everyone, we're here talking about ecology in my backyard and your backyard again. And today we have a very large plant, relatively big. It can grow up to about 8 feet tall. And this is called Angelica. And Angelica, the name would suggest, is like an angel, but actually this is the bad girl of the plant world, and that there's some negative effects associated with it, which we'll talk about later. This is an invasive species. It's native to Europe and Central Asia, but it was introduced to Cape Breton as a garden ornamental species around Louisbourg area. Since then, it's spread across most of Cape Breton and also parts of New Brunswick. And it's in any kind of area where there's frequent disturbance. I'm on a roadside right now, just on my driveway, and we do mow it occasionally, and that's the kind of disturbance that, an intermediate disturbance that Angelica likes, and we'll talk later in the class about intermediate disturbance hypothesis. So you can identify Angelica right now. We have a white inflorescence. There's thousands of miniature white little small flowers, sometimes pinkish, here on top of Angelica. And the stems have a purplish color to them, and they're very thick. You can see it relative to the diameter of the pen, how thick those stems are on Angelica. It vaguely looks like rhubarb, and some people would consume it as such. They would eat these stems raw, just like you would consume rhubarb, and they would also use the leaves. They would put them into stews. The roots would have some potato-like properties. It was actually used like a vegetable, and so there's a good number of benefits associated with Angelica. Largely that's the species that we have in Europe, called Angelica archangelica, and it was named archangelica because the archangel Michael came and told the people about the medicinal benefits of Angelica archangelica, which were many. Within their plant stems, there's a compound, a derivative of coumarin, called ostol, and ostol actually has anti-inflammatory properties, and it inhibits the synthesis of vitamin K, which is part of the clotting cascade, and it was used to prevent inadvertent blood clots, deep vein thrombosis, and pulmonary embolisms. So there is some medicinal benefits to this plant for sure. Angelica has also a nasty trick though, in that it contains a phototoxic substance in its sap that captures the energy from the sunlight and converts it into singlet oxygen, which is a reactive oxygen species, has an unpaired electron in its outer valence shell, and that makes it extremely reactive. So if you would step on this plant and get sap on your hands or on your shoes, and then you subsequently touch your skin, you would get severe dermatitis. If you touch your eye, it can even cause blindness. So that's something you have to watch out for. My dog Buddy's here with us today, and sometimes dogs will go through the underbrush, break things, and then if someone pets their dog, they now get that sap on their skin, and they can no longer, and now it will cause the dermatitis on them. So if we look at the inflorescence here, when I checked earlier today, there's actually 6 different pollinators on this inflorescence. So it spreads just by normal pollination, making nectar, which is spread by the insect pollinators, and there are 6 different species on it just before we started this video. So it's very interesting. So this is an invasive species. There's a cousin of this, also spread by people bringing it in as an ornamental into their gardens, called giant hogweed. And giant hogweed can get to be 2.5 meters tall. It's a really, really big plant, really thick stem. Superficially bears a resemblance to Angelica because they're both from the carrot family, so they'll have a lot of similarities. But it has a really nasty phytotoxic compound in it that is responsible for lots of damage to eyes and skin in southern Ontario, where I came from. So Angelica, the cousin of the giant hogweed, has much less of the phytotoxic compounds in it, and incidentally has none of the ostol, the coumarin derivative that's used as the vitamin K analog. That's only in archangelica, so this cousin lacks that compound. Anyhow, a very interesting example of ecology in my backyard and your backyard. Also want to just kind of throw this out as a public service announcement, that to be aware of what it is. Anybody traveling down to Louisbourg area, there's tons of it. Richmond County has tons. Cape Breton County has tons. This species is actually Angelica sylvestris. Sylvestris means growing under the woodlot, so it does like to grow under trees, but can also be in open fields, and it's especially prevalent in ditches around the Louisbourg area. So just be really careful when you come across this. If you do harvest it mechanically, trying to stop this invasive plant from moving through, and many experts say it's only a matter of years until this plant comes in and starts to outcompete all the native flora that we have here, because it is very aggressive and it does block all the light out. So many people do try to mechanically harvest it. It's very difficult to eradicate permanently, but if you do, be very careful of the sap, because again, it has that phytotoxin in it that can make the energy from the sunlight converted into oxyradicals, and that can damage your skin, if not cause problems for your eyes. So just something to be aware of. Okay, so that's another example of ecology in my backyard and in your backyard.